Violent incidents are on the increase. 46% of our presentations are stabbing related. A young person who fell off a roof while being chased by police. A 12-year-old who was stabbed in the leg by another 12-year-old. When I was at school, the general go-to was a fight in the playground or a fight after school, whereas now unfortunately it seems like escalations are much more severe and people are bringing knives and in some cases guns to the fight. As the first stage of it's not escalating into that is flashpoint. Without Redthread, these people wouldn't have the support that we offer, unfortunately.
All of us have faced challenges throughout our lives and we haven't always had the support or the access to services. I think us being here when they're in that moment of crisis, it just makes such a difference. And to me, that's a real highlight of this job.
Working with young people who, within that moment of crisis, it gives you that chance to help that young person change their whole outlook on life. And from then on, the relationship that you build with the young people and the support and guidance you're giving them, it actually goes a long way.
Afternoon, my name's Sean Monaghan. I work for Redthread and we work with young people. I'm working with a young man who's moved to the area recently. He's probably only going to be there temporarily, but could really do with just accessing some youth support. Is there a sort of an age range for complex youth support? Throughout the day we have lots of phone calls to make. We have to liaise with numerous professional bodies, whether it's police, children's or adult social services, hospital staff, but also those sort of longer term community-based organisations that we really value. After all, we can't sort of keep young people on our caseloads. Our whole model is to support young people through times of crisis, to help them back into the sort of community organisations that are on the ground in their areas that know far more about what's going on than we do. So the call I've just made then was regarding a young man who's had to move from one area to another. He's only going to be there temporarily, but we really feel he may need some sort of pro-social support. He's really keen to get into some sort of football or any form of sport really, just while he's there, because he's living with people other than his own parents. He's got a lot of challenges, a lot of things going on for him at the minute, and feels the only thing that can really bring that stress level down is doing something which he enjoys, which is football. So I'm currently ringing around to try and find a suitable place for him to go to. A lot of what we do, I would say, is sort of practical safeguarding. How you can get from one place to another, how you can assess risk as a young person walking about in your daily life, and what support network do they have and what can we support them to build up. And really what we want for any young person who we support is that by the end they feel happier, healthier and safer.
Can you give us an example of what you would do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so first off we would be checking the systems for referrals, so the hospital systems, and as soon as we get that information, whether it's myself or a member of the team, we need to go onto the hospital system, see what information is available to us and work out whether that child or young person has been safeguarded first and foremost, any information we might need prior to engaging with that young person, and then meeting that person to see what it is that they feel they need, because often what we as professionals think a young person might need is actually quite different from what they feel they might need. Now, of course they need to be safeguarded, but actually all of our work is around helping that young person sort of navigate through life after a serious injury or trauma, as everything gets far more complex perhaps than it was before. If we think about a child who's suffered harm at the hands of someone else, then that has happened to them, they weren't in control when that was happening, they're then not in control in the hospital. They're in the back of an ambulance, the blue lights are going, everything's quite fast paced, and they come to hospital and there are, sometimes 12 or more clinical members of staff wearing strange clothing, talking in medical jargon, and once again that young person doesn't feel like they're in control. They're not really sure what's happening to them. So our job really in the first instance is to give power back to that young person. You will never walk into a space without asking them if it's alright to do so. Of course, medical staff, there isn't often the time to do that because they're here to save that young person's life, and that needs to be first and foremost. But as it is sort of the psychosocial model, so we're really trying to think holistically about what that young person might need outside of their medical intervention.
With what Redthread does on a whole national scale, I think it's a brilliant thing. Because at first, when I first heard about youth workers being in hospital, I didn't really think much as to what they can do. However, when I looked on the actual nature of the work and what the role involves, it's actually quite powerful.
We work with any young person aged 11 to 24 who presents to one of those 3 hospitals as victims of serious violence or exploitation. Now, that's quite a wide bracket for things. Sometimes young people might present to hospital with something that might be medically less serious, but actually the context behind it is really quite serious. So all of the young people we work with are at risk of or who have received significant harm.
We sometimes get referrals through our trauma alert, which is this little gadget here. So whenever this bleeps, that tells us that a young person is being admitted to ED, and that's when myself and the team will act accordingly and quickly to go and see to the young person.
This is where we often find young people. They've come in through an ambulance just out of that door. They'll receive their sort of primary survey handover, which is where paramedics will highlight the injuries that they've sort of assessed, handing over to the medical team here, the trauma team, and very often it isn't suitable for us to be there in the first instance because their injuries are that severe. We will gather what information we can, and then we'll wait until it's suitable for us to come and visit the patient. Then we will really just try and cater for their basic needs. So it might be that they need water, they might well need surgery, so they probably can't be given food, but mum might need calling, or mum might be out there not knowing what's going on. And of course things are really busy here, so we might be out with the family just trying to hold that space for them, just to let them know that what's happening in here, that we can't, of course, give any medical information, but we can say that he's sat there or she sat there and they're smiling, they're talking, just to sort of, support the family a little bit while they wait for the information from doctors and nurses.
Can you talk about the process of how you work with Redthread? So what would happen if a patient came onto the ward?
Of course.
What's the kind of referral process there?
When a patient is admitted here, we do a referral to Redthread if we think it's appropriate that meets their referral criteria. Redthread will then answer the referral and make themselves present on the ward. They will liaise with the nursing staff to find out the details of a patient's injury or what's required from them. It's very nice to see them in a non-clinical uniform. They're very easily identified and they're very supportive to both the patients and the staff. We do get frequent patients here that have suffered traumatic injuries or stabbing injuries or assault injuries.
Naturally, some cases do affect you more than others. Sometimes it might not even be the severity of the case, some just do. But we have support for that here. There's like outside people we can call. Our management is really supportive as well. There's been a few times where I've ended up staying over 3-4 hours past my shift and they stay too. They might be at home but their phone is on because they know whatever I'm doing that's challenging, that I'm going to need to talk about it when I'm finished so that I can go home and switch off. So yeah, we're really lucky we've got really good support like that. I originally worked in a children's home, and I found that a lot of the young people that I worked with, they would be at risk of exploitation, and it really shocked me like how much this happens. So after that I went into another job, and that was exploitation based, and then I came to Redthread.
What are the common signs?
There's like changes in appearance, changes in mood, unexplained money, unexplained maybe like marks on the body and stuff like that. In my role, it can be very different. So we get a lot of referrals, and it might be, you know, somebody's been stabbed or somebody's been shot. We tend to look at different referrals as well now. So we're looking out for like overdoses, poor mental health. You know, they might be coming in with abdominal pains, headaches, and so we're not always looking at like the typical signs of exploitation, but we're looking at other things that may lead to something else. So yeah, we'll pick them up, and you know, it can be that they're presenting in hospital because they just want someone to ask them if they're okay. So they come in with headaches and things like that, and then the more we speak and explore, the more we find out. For me, challenges that we face daily is like access to services, and sometimes the barriers that come with that. A lot of the young people we work with, they or them and their families might need housing. Obviously, there's not just houses. The housing stock is so low in Birmingham that that's something that we face all the time.
At the moment we're just getting, like, mental health cases have reduced and stabbings have drastically expanded, unfortunately. And also another thing that we have is most of our young people are incredibly scared. They've been traumatised by someone. They don't always entirely know why. They don't know if it's in their local area it's going to happen again. So, you know, how can we safeguard them without showing that they're a snitch, or, you know, we can't push the agenda too hard because they've got to live with it after. So part of our work is understanding what we can do for them that's not going to get them repercussions, unfortunately. We got a lot more female presentations during lockdown, and there were severe mental health issues. So it was overdoses, self-harm. We saw an increase in domestic violence. As society has opened up, that has reduced for this quarter. So we've seen mostly males, unfortunately, stabbing. When we do see female presentations for stabbings, they are usually very severe, unfortunately. But at the same time, we don't see that many.
Some days we could get a huge number of referrals, other days we might not get any referrals. However, there is always something to do, and no 2 days are the same within this role. A young person that comes into hospital with stab wounds or gunshot wounds, that can be quite traumatic to a lot of people. So when you visually see that sort of scenario, it can have an impact.
We've all gone through really extensive sort of training packages. We have a big induction package, followed by a much longer term sort of core module training. So we're all really upskilled in the understanding of the trauma that we might experience, the vicarious trauma of working with, caring for, having high hopes for young people who are in really dangerous situations. Internally, we also have monthly supervision, but then on top of that, we have clinical supervision. So by trained professionals every fortnight who really help us unpack our experiences, the things we've seen and heard, so that we're able to sort of, unpack that, but also work out how to move forward. And if there's ever something that's really on our minds, or if we're stuck on a case and we really want to work out why, clinical supervision is a great place for that.
So the support and guidance we give to young people once they get discharged from hospital, it's something that would hopefully live with them forever, where they would remember the support we've given them. for when they transition into another area of their lives.